standing with his arms stretched open. People had already gathered to hear his wise and gentle words. The people were sitting on the ground all around him. Each one of their eyes were glued to his glorious face. His gestures were graceful and calming, complimenting his easy-to-understand speech. As I peered through the crowd, everyone was quiet, and all I could hear was his sturdy voice teaching about a remarkable subject, prayer. Listening to Jesus seemed like a sweet melody, like a child playing on a harp. It was pleasant and comfortable. As I searched among the people, I spotted a group of men, his disciples. They were the ones leaning in, studying every word Jesus spoke. Nothing else, even in its purest form, is like the presence of Jesus. His presence is almost indescribable.
You hear that?
The air is thinner, and your body trembles. Your knees almost quiver at the sight of him. And every time he preaches, a spirit of fire fills the depths of your soul. His features make him powerful, yet so innocent. He said, "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut the door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which is in secret shall reward thee openly." Many of those in the crowd looked somewhat shocked at these words. Their own religious leaders did not pray like this. They prayed openly in the streets. I myself had seen them in the streets praying loudly and condemning others before God. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think they shall be heard by their much speaking, he said, pinking his eyes at every person. And then he laughed at the end of his sentence, which made everyone, including the children, smile. Be not ye therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of, even before ye ask him. After this manner, therefore pray ye. His gleaming eyes shut, his head slowly bowed, and he prayed. Into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. many days later, we had made our way to Jerusalem, the epicenter for the religious activity in this land. Jesus had found his way to their temple and was teaching the people. As he was teaching, a group of the religious elite, the Pharisees, interrupted the teaching by saying that there was this woman and they had thrown her on the ground. They placed themselves between Jesus and the crowd, threw the woman on the ground, and began yelling at Jesus. They were almost in a frenzy. At first I thought they were going to kill the woman, but it wasn't anger. It was almost excitement. After they had finally calmed down, they began to tell the story of this woman. They told of how they had found her with a man that was not her husband. She was an adulteress. I wondered immediately where the man was and how this group of men knew of this act. But my attention was quickly turned back to the situation at hand when these religious men said that the law of Moses required that she be put to death by stoning. That was a brutal way to die. I had seen men stoned to death on the battlefield by soldiers, but these men were not soldiers, and yet their joy was almost uncontainable. After they said that the law of Moses required that she be stoned, they asked Jesus, "What do you think we should do with her?" Everything went quiet. All eyes were on Jesus. Everyone knew that Jesus would never want this woman to be put to death. But how could it possibly be avoided? The Pharisees stood there with these pious looks on their faces as if to say, "We've got you now." It was at that point that I realized they were there to kill someone. But it wasn't this woman. They were after Jesus. They could smell the blood in the water, and they were ready to pounce. All the crowd was scared, but in my own heart, I was angry. These men did not intimidate me, and I was ready to defend Jesus with my sword. I knew that Jesus was a strong, intelligent man. That was obvious to everyone that had spent any time around him. I expected him to begin to explain to them why this woman should not be put to death, or to stand up to them in defense of this woman and fight for her life. But he didn't do either one of those things. In fact, he acted as if they weren't even there. He knelt down and began writing in the dirt. From where I was, I couldn't read what he was writing, but it must have been arresting for them, because as he wrote, the faces of the accusers began to change. One by one, their countenances went from anticipation to embarrassment to fear. Jesus finally stood back up and broke the silence by saying, "Whichever one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her." They stood there in disbelief. As they were standing there, Jesus knelt down and continued writing in the dirt. I wanted so badly to see that he was writing. I began to make my way through the crowd. And as I began to make my way, something strange happened that stopped me in my tracks. These religious men, who had been viewed as the most intelligent, the most righteous men in the land, began to leave. It was as though they themselves had been caught in the act of some great sin. Once they were gone, Jesus stood and asked the woman where her accusers were, and if any man had condemned her. And she said, "No man, Lord." And then Jesus did something that I will never forget. He forgave her. He said to her, "I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more." her countenance changed. It was like someone had lifted a heavy burden off of her shoulders. For just a moment, she had a look of desperation and confusion on her face.